generators really should be responding to something. You don't want to just sit down and have a blank screen, which I think is for a lot of us. Like I do best when I start from some kind of idea. Generators are really here to help us further the conversation, and their content should follow that. I think a big question for generators should be, how can I further this conversation?
Hey friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. Hey, my Feel Good friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm so excited to share today's guest with you because her name is Caitlan, and she is just a wonderful, wonderful soul. I love talking with her, and especially about this topic because we dive into human design and how you can use your human design to create content online for your brand in an aligned way. So if you are into human design, I know you're going to love this conversation. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or you've heard of human design and you're like, I don't really know much about it, or I don't know if it's for me, that's okay. Caitlan does a really good job of explaining kind of what human design is and how we can really use it to get curious about who we are and show up in our lives and our businesses in a way that feels most aligned to us. Because not only will this help us to really find our flow in our businesses and our lives and have more energy, but it will also make us more magnetic to our ideal customers. I really think that you're going to find a lot of great insights from this episode, whether you are a human design nerd or you're just kind of starting to dabble and get curious about it. So if you do enjoy this conversation as much as I did, make sure that you share it to your Instagram stories and or leave us 5 stars or a friendly review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on, because that really does help us to just continue growing our Feel Good community and spreading that Feel Good message. All right, let's go ahead and dive right in. Hi, Caitlan. Thank you so much for coming on the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm so excited to have you on the show, lady.
Hi, Kinsey. I'm very excited to be here and just excited to chat with you today.
Yes. Oh, this is going to be a great chat. I can already feel it, guys. But before we dive into all things human design and content creation, I did just want you to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you serve?
Yeah. Who am I? What do I do? Who do I serve? I think I always have trouble answering this question because I'm like, there's been so many iterations and I feel like we're constantly evolving. In this moment, I am a new mom. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm someone who loves to travel and just loves new adventures. When I first connected with you, I was living in Switzerland, actually. My husband is Swiss, so we spent some time over there and I started my business over there. And I am a person who just loves systems that help us understand ourselves better. So human design is one of those systems. I'm also a licensed therapist, and the type of therapy that I'm trained in, it's called internal family systems, which is another system that just helps us make meanings of ourselves and the world around us. And so I love to help people get more clarity about themselves so they can live a really authentic and aligned life, and so they can feel good, which I love that that's part of your mission and part of your brand. So that's me in a, 30-second quick hit little minuscule piece. But who I serve in the world, I love to support women who are around like the Saturn return time period. So late 20s, early 30s, because I feel like it's this transition from what we thought people wanted of us, what we thought we should do. I very much was working in the corporate world, in marketing, actually, in my early and mid 20s. And I thought that's what I should do. Let me climb the corporate ladder. Let me just achieve, go. I bought a house. I call it box checking. I was just checking all of the boxes. But I was just trying to figure out what society wanted me to do and who society wanted me to be, then I stopped doing that. I left the corporate world. I went back and got my master's degree. I became a therapist, and now I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm continuing to evolve. And for me, it's such a special time, that late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s. We're all just really stepping into who we're meant to be in the world. And the systems that I mentioned before, human design and IFS therapy, are just tools to help us get a better grasp on that, because I think society, particularly for women, really tries to tell us who we should be or how we should feel or what we should be doing. And I am on a mission to help people not subscribe to that.
I love it. I love so much about everything that you do. Also, oh man, we might have to have you back on for an internal family systems conversation, because another thing I would love to geek out with you about. But okay, it's so funny that you bring up like the systems, and I do think that's so helpful. It's so funny. I was just interviewing someone about human design earlier, and I was like describing myself as woo curious, that's rooted in logic. So, you know my chart, it's like the heads part area, right? So
yes,
but even if you're hearing the things that we're talking about on today's show, we will be talking about human design, possibly some internal family system stuff too. But it's really about being able to understand yourself in the world better, like you said. And I was listening to Glennon Doyle's podcast the other day. She just interviewed one of her friends. She has this whole ongoing joke about how she can't make friends or whatever. But they were talking about how they really speak about life in analogies in a way.
Yes.
And the friend was sharing about how she felt like she was a potted plant. And she was like, I'm outgrowing my pot. I need to root my blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is making so much sense. Anytime we can name something, it made me think of the internal family systems thing, actually, because anytime we can name something and understand it outside of ourselves and what it means for us, that seems like it works so much better.
It's so true, because parts of us can make meaning about ourselves. If you use that pot as an example of being that planted pot. If you're outgrowing your pot, a part of you can be like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? Am I not meant to be here anymore? Am I too much or too big or too small? Or if you take it outside yourself, it's, oh, a lot of these parts of me just don't fit in this container anymore. So now I need to get a different container and I need to evolve. And for me, that's the beauty of using or getting information and utilizing these meaning-making systems, is then we can have a different perspective on ourselves and not be so mean to ourselves, man. So many of us, I don't know, I'll speak for me. I can have an inner critic, and what is she mean? She's like the Trunchbull in Matilda. Do you remember that character?
Yes. Oh my gosh, the worst.
The worst.
Oh my gosh, that room with like the freaking nails in it or whatever. That's still, I think about that.
Right? And just, it's funny because the way my hair is right now with the braid, it's like very much giving that energy of the hair pulled back. She has the hair pulled back in the sweatsuit. But I have a part that can be quite mean and really hard on me. And so being able to separate myself from that voice, that's not all of me. That's just one voice, and I don't have to listen to that voice or make meaning about myself. It's, Trunchbull going off again. It's totally fine.
Let's take a quick break.
Do you want to create more Instagram Reels but get stuck on what to post? I hear you. That's why I'm excited to share our new free resource, the Reels Prompt Playbook for ChatGPT. This playbook includes 20 ready-to-use AI prompts for Reels, hooks, and captions, and makes it super easy to create trendy content that grabs attention without spending endless hours scrolling Instagram for inspiration. Whether you want to share behind the scenes, offer quick tips, or tap into the latest trends, the Reels Prompt Playbook has you covered. Download your free Reels Prompt Playbook at DIYwith.ai/Reels And the best part, these ChatGPT prompts are designed to work for entrepreneurs in any industry. Plus, you can pair these prompts with any trending audio or any video that you find on your phone. Basically, they're super easy, super quick, and will keep your content super authentic while saving you loads of time and headache. Grab your free playbook now at DIY.ai/reels and start showing up on Instagram consistently today. Oh my gosh. And like naming her too, like naming different parts of yourself. I was thinking about this the other day with like confidence and stuff. Or I think I got an email about it and I was just like mulling it over how like people name their confident alter egos too. Like Beyonce has one. Lots of celebrities have like the confident alter ego and they have a name. They show up as that person. And I'm like, I get that when it comes to like it's okay to have like different parts of yourself and welcome them in and recognize them and allow them to show up however you need to right now.
For sure. And there's something I appreciate about internal family systems is that there's compassion for those parts. Even though I'm calling her Trench Bowl on here, like I understand what she's hoping for. I know because I've done my own work, I've gone to my own IFS therapy. I know the intention behind it. I know why she's being mean. And I know that's coming from a place, it's like a misguided place. And then I can have more compassion for that. But yeah, anyways, I could talk about internal family systems for a long time and I don't want to.
I know. Oh my gosh, we could totally go down that hole. But I did want to chat a little bit more so today about the human design stuff.
Yes.
And especially when it relates to content creation. So we'll get into that, guys. Don't worry. But before we dive deep into that stuff, if there's anyone out there who doesn't really understand what human design even is, can you please give us an overview of what we're even talking about here?
Oh my gosh, of course. I feel like this is much needed because it does feel like it's floating out here and we want to bring it down. So I'll speak in analogies as well. First of all, it has a very interesting beginning. This guy who called himself Raw, this is where I think people get turned off by it because they're like, wait a second, what? This white dude who called himself Raw went out to the woods and said he downloaded this system. But the premise of human design is really that it's based on energy types and how we are designed to show up in the world. And I like to think about it as like a sports team, right? I played basketball growing up. I played soccer growing up. And not every single person plays the same position, right? You don't have 5 goalies on the team. You have 1 goalie. Or you don't have 5 point guards. You have 1 point guard. In human design, there are different design types. Those are like the different positions in sports, and they have a different intention of what they're meant to do. And when we can understand how we fit into the team, the collective world, we can really show up and do our job as the point guard or the goalie a lot better. And it feels better in our energy because we're meant to be the goalie. We're like, I am the best goalie. I am like World Cup status, saving those goals goalie. So if you think of it like that, there's a lot of, that's the kind of the high level. But for anyone who's a visual learner, if you look at your chart, there's like a little person and there's a body. And then there's all of these squares and triangles and shapes on there. And some of them are colored in and some of them are not. I like to think of human design as this system that also aligns to our body energy. So it tells us information about where in our body we have more defined energy and where we don't, and where we're like taking on energy from other people. And is historical rootings of human design, it combines astrology and the I Ching and the chakra system and all kinds of different ancient practices, and it brings it in. And when people hear that, I think they can be like, okay, weird, crazy. But I'll just tell a quick story about my 65-year-old sweet father who is so not woo, it's not even funny. I think if I was like, Dad, what's astrology? He'd be like, something about the stars. I don't know. I have no idea. And a couple of years ago, because I had been talking and raving about human design for a long time, he was like, what is that? What does it mean? And I was like, let me get you a chart and printout of your chart that explains it to you. And I got it for him, Kinsey. And he, to this day, still talks about he's a manifester. I'm a manifester. And that means that I am like meant to work by myself and I don't need other people. He just felt so seen and understood. And because I think he's felt so misunderstood for so much of his life, human design just basically gave him this huge permission to see those parts of himself that maybe society was shaming him for. Manifestors have an intense energy and they can be really direct. Sometimes they can be really initiating. And he never understood why he had that energy about himself. But then when he sees himself as, yeah, I'm that initiator on the team, we need that energy, it gave him more permission to be more accepting. And for me, knowing the work I do in the therapy room, it just all came together and made sense of here's a system that gives us permission to embrace all parts of ourselves and learn about gifts. You and I were DMing, you're like, what is this gifts thing? Because it's not on every single chart. And it's about the kind of energy you have flowing from different points of your body. And anyways, knowing your gifts, it's, oh, cool. I know that I have the gift of ideas, which is great. I have 10,000 ideas. If you need a business idea, hit me up. I got 1 million in a Notion document. But knowing that I need support bringing those ideas to life then also helps me ask for what I need in a different way. So I just think it's a system that helps us understand ourselves better and helps us be in better, more harmonious relationships with other people too, and helps us design our businesses in such cool ways. Anyways, I'm getting excited, but I hope this makes sense.
No, totally. I think it's really interesting. And yeah, it's just go look up your chart and see what's resonating. And I think that also another thing with human design often is it's a little bit confusing somewhat when you just are starting out. So that's where you go listen to Caitlan's podcast or I've been using ChatGPT. I've just been screenshotting and throwing my chart in there and being like, what can you tell me about this?
Such a great idea. It makes it so easy. I'm actually coming out with a freebie that's going to explain the chart for anyone who has logical parts that are like, what is this triangle thing? I am going to create a guide that's step by step explaining this and breaking this down so it can be more easy to digest because there's a lot happening and it's really overwhelming at first.
Totally. And I'm over here laughing because I'm that logical person who definitely would need that for sure. But yeah. And also, who cares necessarily if you believe it or not or whatever it is? It's helpful. I love that your dad felt seen. My husband is also a manifester. But I think often too with guys, they feel a lot more of that shame sometimes when they feel like, because they aren't able to express it maybe as easily sometimes.
Completely. One aspect of my dad's chart is he has a defined emotional center. So he feels the high highs of emotions and the low lows. And he wasn't really given permission to be a more emotional person throughout his life. Learning about his human design has helped him embrace that. He's, oh yeah, I have high highs and low lows and I like feel all of these things. And it's so cool to see that as more empowering language versus like, you're so emotional or whatever kind of shaming stuff that we can say, like particularly to men around emotions.
Yeah. Or like for me with my husband, who's a manifester and stuff, it's so much better for communication with us and stuff too. And I'm a projector. So I'm like I have somewhat learned just through society, even over the years, to like not insert myself as much, I'm supposed to wait for the invitation, right? Actually, it's hilarious. That was one of the main things I worked on. I went to therapy in like high school. And that was one of my big takeaways from like that therapist is like training myself to not try to get into people's heads and not make assumptions about how people are feeling because I was doing that and it was like rubbing the wrong way for sure. You know what I mean? And so I'm like that. And then him as a manifestor, he likes to just go do things and thinks that I know what he's doing.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't. So it's good for communication for sure.
1,000%. In fact, today I have a podcast episode releasing that's about how knowing your human design can improve your relationships. And it's exactly that. My husband's also a manifestor. I'm also a projector. And what you're describing to a T, it's an example that I gave on the episode of he will just go away and go do something, which is so great and helpful until I'm like, hey, what's going on? I just need the information from you.
Tell me what is happening. I know.
Totally.
He always thinks that he tells me too. I'm like, no, you didn't. I have no idea what's happening. He's like holding like a stick and like a hammer and like all. I'm like, what is going on? But okay, let's go ahead and just talk a little bit maybe then about some of the ways that we can use our human design, and especially in our business and even content creation. I guess let's just start with like maybe business in general, as far as like the different types. What are some of those ways that we can find insights in our human design that can help us in business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to anyone who's listening to just look at your chart. So make sure you have it. Once you have your chart, I think the biggest thing, the like high level piece that I'll be speaking to today is your energy type. So looking at your energy type, there are 5. I was talking about the different positions on a team. Knowing what your energy type is and how you fit into the collective team can really help you in your business, because then you can tailor your strategy and your content, everything to that high level design. I think giving specific examples, I want to go into the energy type so that we can understand them. So then I can give specific examples.
Sounds good. Yeah.
The most common energy type we'll start with is generators. That's 37% of the population. And if you're a generator, you are here to go, go, go. You're the person on the team that could keep running and running and running. You have so much energy. It's in your name. You generate your own energy, and you are really meant to respond to things. So you're like, ooh, that's cool. I love that. I'm going to think about this. So in business, as a generator, you really want to focus on things that bring you joy and light you up, because that's going to keep giving you that like beautiful energy to keep your engine running. It's like junk food versus food that's more nourishing. As a generator, if you're just consuming junk, like things that don't light you up, if you're not in a job that's exciting, if you're not doing work that's exciting, you're going to start to feel bad, even though you have a lot of energy, because it's not like quality oil for the machine. And trust me, I love candy. I love unhealthy food, 100%. But if that's all I ate, that's not nourishing or sustainable, right? So knowing that as a business owner, if you're a generator, really thinking about that and being intentional and working on that and being like, whoa, I'm not even prioritizing joy at all. Like I've created this business that mimics, I think a lot of business owners do this. I've created this business that mimics what I was in because that's what I know. It feels crappy. So focusing on joy and knowing that you are going to have the energy to sustain that is really important. Also, generators, content-wise, I think when you're sitting down to create content for your business, you should absolutely follow ideas that you feel most lit up by. If you are like, ooh, this is a really cool thing that I have going on, or you're like, ooh, I love that idea, I'm just going to follow it, please do that. You also need to give yourself something to respond to. So this is where ChatGPT could be really great. I know you have a bunch of great prompts and all kinds of stuff going on over there that people can utilize, but generators really should be responding to something. You don't want to just sit down and have a blank screen, which I think is for a lot of us. Like I do best when I start from some kind of idea. Even if you just take an idea, like you saw a post and you're like, ooh, cringy. Okay, What was cringy about that? Great. Let's respond to that. You want to carve out time and space to respond because that is your strategy as a generator. Make sure you have enough time and space to create that content, but also think of your responses and then mold them into something. For any generator that I work with, I think it's also helpful for them to use other people and other posts to generate inspiration for you. Generators are really here to help us further the conversation, and their content should follow that. I think a big question for generators should be, how can I further this conversation? Is this making sense?
Yeah, no, it is.
Okay, good. So generators, you're the most popular design type. You have this beautiful energy, and those are a few tips for you. In business, it's also important to know as a business owner that you do generate your own energy, but that does not mean that you're like Superwoman or Superman. You can burn yourself out. And that's where you want to make sure that fuel that you're fueling yourself with, not like physically, obviously that's important, but that joy piece is a really big component. Next most common design type is manifesting generators. Those folks are taking the generator type and the manifestor type, and they're like smashing them together. So you're part generator, part manifestor, all rolled up into this fun little ball of energy. You also have sustained energy. And if you're a business owner as a manifesting generator, I do not suggest niching down. Here's why. Manifesting generators are multi-passionate, and we all can be multi-passionate. I would consider myself someone who has a lot of kind of random passions, but manifesting generators are like here, there, and everywhere. Now you see them, now they're there, now they're this, now they're that. I think about a colleague of mine who I adore, who's going to become a professor, but also has a true crime podcast, but also is really into teaching about decolonization, and also we just recorded a podcast about O.J. Simpson and our perspectives as therapists on the O.J. Simpson documentary. Random. This person really doesn't, maybe a more traditional business coach would be like, you need to pick one thing and you need to stick to it. As a manifesting generator, really, you should use all of your energy up, or you're not going to be able to sleep at night. This is a hallmark thing for manifesting generators. If you're having trouble sleeping, it's because you're not using enough of your energy during the day. So don't necessarily niche down, or don't feel a pressure to niche down as a manifesting generator just because you need a niche. You need to understand who you're serving, of course, and why you're doing it. Giving yourself permission to make it a little bit bigger, I think, can be super helpful. And you're going to have some of the same strategy when it comes to content creation as generators, making sure that you add in the manifestor piece and that your content informs people. So you want to respond, you want to ask, how can I further the conversation? But also, how can I inform people of something? Because that's the manifestor aspect, right? We're left being like, hey, what's happening? So manifesting generators, your strategy is to respond first and then to inform. So your content should match that, right? You should be creating content that's a response to something, but is also taking us to the next level of, and now I'm going to go do this. This is my response, but I'm also flying us over here.
I feel like my mom is a manifesting generator.
So is
and
mine.
I have a lot. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we are so similar. I have a lot of manifesting generators in my life. And it's funny. Tell me what you think about this, because people are often surprised when they find out I'm a projector. And like, I think I act like a manifesting generator in a lot of ways, like just buzzing around. I like do seem to have quite a bit of energy, but I think I find time to replenish my energy in different ways too and stuff. But is it because I was raised by a manifesting generator? Do you think that's it?
I mean, the therapist in me is like, but also I can so relate to that. And I think about, this is for me, the exact magic of knowing your human design. Because for you, I would be curious. Yes, you can have that energy and that buzzing, and that's totally cool and maybe natural to you, Kinsey. but also what did you learn growing up around rest? What did you learn around watching another female? How I'd be curious, like, how that was for your mom. What was she doing? What did you take in? Because if you think about how much time we spend with our caregivers and our parents in like such formative years, it could be so subconscious, but it's, wow, what did we pick up and take in? And particularly projectors and reflectors, we are the most sensitive to our environments.
Okay.
I mean, it's like kind of the chicken or the egg, right? It would be hard to say. And that could be like a fun deep dive for you to just explore. But yeah, there's something to be said about how our charts are influenced by the people that we're around. You are picking up her consistent energy, her ongoing energy, and whatever other defined centers that she has, especially if so your centers, most of your chart is undefined besides your heart center, your throat center, and your ajna center. And so else, if we pulled up your mom's chart, you're going to have that definition when you're around her, which is really interesting.
Oh, I'll have to look at her chart after this, right?
You will.
I've definitely picked up like the multi-passionate thing from her for sure. I can feel that. And if anything, I definitely know that she's always given me permission to be multi-passionate and to follow different things in life and not be too worried about what does this mean? The security thing. Like, I don't have any issues with that security thing as far as pivoting and coming over here and trying this and doing this. And she's always, okay, I'll just throw her under the bus here. Her basement has all of the different as seen on TV products, craft products. And she's, I might want to pick that up again someday. I don't want to get rid of it. I'm like, okay, mom, just keep on manifest generating or whatever.
Yeah, just keep doing your little random things here. I can so relate. Even career-wise, my mom was a flight attendant, but then she also sold clothes, and then she also was a mom, and then she also and like all of those things. So I think it's great though. Like, it's okay if we are influenced by that. There's something beautiful about what you were sharing around like that permission to be multi-passionate and to not have any meaning about pivoting. That's part of the evolution. And this is where I love human design, is like, that's just information. And that helps you get clear about Kinsey and then your mom and how you can influence one another, which isn't good or bad. It's just, being aware that influence is there.
Yeah, yes. I love it. Okay, let's go on to projector.
Let's go to projectors, Kinsey and I. So 20% of the population, and projectors are the people on the team that are, a lot of human design literature calls us like the guides. I think we've been referred to as the owls, like the little wise owls. That one didn't resonate as much for me, but what you really need to know is your energy is best served when you are seeing deeply into someone else. So if you have your own business, you want to make sure that you're using your energy in a way that helps you guide or facilitate something. I think of projectors more as the people who have a really cool bird's eye view. Like, we're up in the airplane and we're like, oh yeah, we can see that town and that mountain range and this and that. And not everyone has that perspective. And if you are an entrepreneur as a projector, make sure you're doing something where you're offering your perspective to help others see themselves more clearly in some way, shape, or form. The other thing I want to say about projectors and any of the design types from here on out, I'm going to mention, so any manifestors and reflectors, is that we don't have a consistent ongoing energy center, which means that as projectors, we should really be taking rest a bit more seriously than other people. And that's part of our gifts. And for me, this was the biggest deconditioning piece I had to look at, because I used to have a part of me that made a lot of meaning about me being lazy. I was like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just do everything like everyone else? Why can't I just go, go, go? Or like when I was younger, why don't I want to go out like 3 nights in a row? What's wrong? I'm so weird. I want to just go home and go to sleep. And then I realized that knowing my human design helped me see that. And so I think projectors, something for you to be aware of in business is you're much more susceptible to burnout. because you are operating in a world where 70% of the population, manifesting generators and generators, have that consistent energy. Our world is built for them, built by them, and that's great. But it's just something that we need to be aware of. And for any projectors, I love when I see projectors doing things differently in business, like creating what feels consistent to them rather than what everybody says you should do based on XYZ thing. And I think content-wise, there's a couple of important things to know. Projectors, part of what we need is feeling seen and heard and recognized. And I think the thing that people miss about this is that creating content and recognizing has less to do with the vanity metrics and more to do with, are you recognizing yourself? Are you being like, yes, are you standing confidently in your offer and what you're saying? Or do you believe in the content that you're putting out there? Or are you just churning and burning because you're like, oh my gosh, I have to post a reel or no one's going to know about this offer? It has a lot to do, projectors, with the energy that you're bringing to your content creation. I think that also gets misconstrued, and I don't know, Kinsey, this might be where you have questions, is we have the strategy of waiting for the invitation, right? So like, how does that work with content creation? Okay, you do not need an invitation on your own Instagram, on your own podcast. Anywhere that there's like an implied invitation when someone follows you or listens to your podcast or engages with your content, you've just put it out there. They are choosing to engage. So that's the invitation, if that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, yes, that clicks so much. Like the follow is like the invitation. I know, yeah, guys. So the projector thing, of course, it's you have your strategy for how you make decisions or like how you move about the world, and the generator and the manifesting generator, like you're saying, is to respond to things, right?
Yes.
So I like how you said that. But then, yeah, with the wait for the invitation thing, I was like, how the heck does that work with content creation? So I guess when it comes to like projectors creating content, then is there a way we can follow our strategy, or like how do we show up in that? What's the best way to show up then?
The best way to show up is just be yourself and show up and do your thing, because again, the invitation is the person deciding to follow you or not, deciding to engage with your content or not, deciding to listen to your podcast or not. You don't have to worry about, am I inviting them in? It's a little bit like, let's imagine that you are throwing an open house at your house, right? And people are coming to your house and you're just like, hey, my house is open. This is your social media. You have an open house. People don't necessarily need to have an invitation to come to an open house. It's just come on in, have a look around, look at my dining room. If you're selling your house, well, actually, let's ride this analogy fully out. If you are selling your house and you have an open house, you didn't invite all of the people that come and walk through, but someone is likely going to buy it. That's the same strategy for projectors and content. You're just like, here it is.
Having an open house.
Having an open house. Maybe you're interested, maybe you're not interested, but you don't need an invitation for that because they are choosing to come inside.
I love this so much. And a few things clicked. Firstly, I just feel happy now that I'm a projector. I'm like, okay, I just get to show up. Like, great. But then also, okay, this is going to sound so weird. And I don't know if I've ever said this to anyone before, but call to action in my captions never really worked for me. I always include them because you're supposed to, but then sometimes I just write a post. I'm like, I don't need a call to action for this or whatever. And those posts perform better often. They're just more me. The call to actions don't really feel normal. But also, I started in the social media space, and there are so many rules about how to post, how to write the perfect caption.
All the rules.
And one of those things is like always include a call to action. And this is actually something that I like have taught in the past. It makes sense logically.
Totally.
It's like call to action, call to action. And it's one of those things too that in my heart, there's some sort of rub there. And I'm wondering if it's a projector thing or not.
I can imagine that because I felt similarly. I noticed that sometimes I'll just forget them, but I think it's actually that the call to action is either you want to work with me or you don't. That's it. That's the call to action. There's definitely a time and a place for it, but I think that's what you're saying. You are noticing that energetically you want to be recognized first, maybe before there is that call to action from the other person. Human design really is an experiment. You're meant to take this information and then experiment with it, which I love because I'm going to nerd out on this. And so that's something that's going to be really fun for you to continue to experiment with in your content is how can I just show up in the way that naturally feels good to me and throw the rules away and be like, okay, let me just try this for a week and not post any calls to action and see what happens.
I'll just play around with my energy. I'll have to come back and give y'all an update. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the manifestor maybe.
Manifestor is the next one because they're the next most common, which actually isn't that common. It's about 7 to 9% of the population.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's why my dad had that really, wow, I feel so seen because it is such a small percentage. But manifestors you all have this initiating energy. You are not the guides, that's us, the projectors, but you're the person that's, hey, we're going this way. And everybody get on this rocket ship because this is where we're going. Don't ask questions. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Just get on. This is where we're going. And you're really the people that are bringing us into the new spaces and places. And it's called the initiator energy. So you're that person on the team that's initiating things. That's boom. You're not guiding it. You're not hey, Bob, you're really good at this. You're really good at that. You're just sorry, this is where we're going. Manifestors are really meant to be unapologetic. And anytime I've seen or worked with manifestors, especially in a business sense, it's really that permission to be in that energy because manifestors can have a little bit of a repelling aura, but you're meant to. For the people that are not meant for you because you are so focused and you're just here to your husband, mine too, will just go off and do the thing. And that's great because you're in your energy, but your strategy is to inform. And so when you're thinking of content, you want to inform people in your content. And you really have to do that first because that's what's going to help bring you to success. So let's say someone who's a manifestor is going through a business pivot. It's so important that they share that and explain that and say and inform people hey, I'm going from this thing in my business to this thing in my business. And here's why. Other design types may not need to do that, but manifestors energetically, you need to because that's part of your strategy. And you don't need anyone's permission. You don't have to ask anybody. There's no poll. There's no, do you think I should do this? It's do it. Don't apologize, but make sure you let us know that it's happening.
Oh my gosh, I'm cracking up because thinking about just Brett in our life. And I'm getting a sense of how all these different parts and pieces of the team, the players, kind of do fit together in the world.
Yeah. And I think that's helpful to understand because then, at least for me, it's cool. If I'm staying in my projector lane and I'm here guiding and talking about these things and staying in my own energy, then I'm helping support the collective because then the generator is my son who's 6 months old is a generator. And he gives me so much energy and brings me so much joy. And if I stay in my lane and I keep help guiding him to do things that light him up, we have this beautiful relationship where we're each mutually benefiting from it. And it's when we try to shut down or shame or not allow people to step into their design. And I used to do this to my husband before I knew about human design. I would be what's wrong with you? Why can't you just tell me what you're doing? And it would be so frustrating. And now I'm hey, that's amazing that you are just in your manifestor energy. Please don't forget to tell me that you're going off to do that. I love you.
I know. And I've told my husband, you have to invite me to tell you my opinion because I will tell you. And it's so funny. Oh my gosh, I've had so many times with my husband where, okay, let's use remodeling, for example, because we've had lots of experiences with remodeling. If you can't tell, my manifestor image of my husband is him holding a hammer, right? I have had so many instances where we're like thinking about like a room and stuff. And I'm just like, oh, what if we did this? And he's no, and like immediately rejects it. And then 2 weeks later comes back around and is, hey, so I'm thinking maybe we do this. And it's like, listen, and I'm like, and he's like, you're right. I should always listen to you. You're always right. Now I'm going to tell him that he just needs to ask my opinion more often, which I think he's doing a better job of, if we're honest.
Yeah, but that's that thing, right? Where like that might feel just a little bit more cozier for you both, because I can relate to this a lot too, is now with my husband, especially if it comes to work, I'm like, are you venting or do you want to know what I think? Sometimes he'll be like, okay, I want to know what you think. And then sometimes he won't. But that's been so helpful, like both protecting my energy from just giving that advice that he may or may not want, but also in him being available to receive it. So it's so powerful. Once you have this information, it's, oh, we can just work out these kinks together and not make meaning about them or about the relationship, but just honor who each of us truly are, which I think is so cool. Yeah. One thing for manifestors that can be really powerful around content creation, actually two things. One is creating content solo can be really great for manifestors, even though they don't have that defined energy. But projectors and reflectors would really benefit from doing a focus mate or having a content creation session, because then we're getting that beautiful energy. Manifestors need to be unapologetic and not be influenced, but projectors, reflectors, the rest of us are like, yeah, give me your yummy ideas and all of your joy and all of those things. So that's really important distinction. And the other thing is you want to, as a manifestor, get all of your informing out first, and then you can go back and edit. Then you can add the pizzazz. You can make it more clear. But do your strategy first, inform, and then go, okay, and put the rest of your personality onto it too. So I think that could be super helpful.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. I'm going to definitely do some mulling over about that later tonight when it comes to Brett and all that stuff. But, oh wait, you just brought up another thing I think that I just wanted to say too is like collaborating. Like I have found that to be really helpful. Also, I'm a like, guys, this is pretty nerdy getting into the chart, but I'm a talk it out authority, I think it is, or something.
Yeah, how you're meant to make decisions.
Which means I literally just need to talk something out before I can make a decision. My mom makes me laugh so much because she's literally like, you're so indecisive, Kinsey, until I like talk her ear off about something. And then I know exactly what it is that I want, right? But I also really have loved using ChatGPT as like a sounding board.
Yeah.
And when it comes to content creation, okay, so I tell everyone this because everyone's thinking like ChatGPT is just going to write you a caption. Just write me a caption, blah, blah, blah. That's how I use it because I'm definitely a word nerd. I love language and I would consider myself a pretty decent writer, honestly. But it takes me so long to write anything by myself because I like anguish over all the words. I have to get it right. I have to get my thoughts right. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so it used to take me like an hour to write an Instagram caption. And it was like really frustrating to me to have to pull teeth to get. And then it was just so satisfying when I finally got the right caption. But like with ChatGPT, I'm able to do it faster. I think because I'm using this as a sounding board and able to go back and forth with it. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, totally. It's like you're partnering with that kind of energy. And as projectors, that's so helpful because, yeah, you can go back and forth. You can use that energy. They're literally generating ideas. And like probably the odds that the person that programmed the AI is likely in the 70% of the population. So there's more of that energy. Ooh, that would be so interesting, like the energy behind AI anyways.
Whoa. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT after this, hey, what is your human design? We'll see what it says. I'm sure it's going to come back with its token answer now. I'm a robot. I don't feel emotions, blah, blah. But whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah. The last one.
The last one is reflectors. And I love meeting and working with reflectors because I'm like, you're a unicorn. It's so cool. 1% of the population. Yeah, like truly. And their chart, so as a reflector, you know you're a reflector because your chart is totally white. So none of the squares or the triangles or anything on like any of the chakras in the body are colored in. So you're like completely clear. You're like this vessel that just reflects all of the energy around you. When you're a part of the team, we need that because we need someone to be like, hey, everybody, look. This is how we're doing. This is what I'm seeing. I'm holding up a mirror. Look at yourselves. A look in the mirror. And that's a tough gig, first of all, because it can be really hard if you don't know that about yourself, that you are just completely susceptible to all of the energy of all of these other people. So I think reflectors, when they find out they're a reflector, they're like, oh my goodness. If you have a business as a reflector, there are a few things I would recommend. One is making sure that you have some kind of way to be alone in your own energy in an environment that feels good to you as a reset button. We all need it, but you out of anyone needs it because anytime you step into the world or work with someone else, you are picking up again all of that energy. So a lot of reflectors I've worked with have been like, it's really hard to know what's mine versus what's other people's. And that can be super, super tricky. So that's just a like business piece for reflectors. And again, reflectors, you are most influenced by the people and the places around you. So if you're working on content, go to a place or a space where you're like, yes, this feels so good. That's going to bring you a lot of that energy to create really great content. And I also think that you can post when it feels right for you. Reflectors are really meant to take their time. Their strategy is to wait an entire moon cycle, 28 days. So it's okay to move at a slower pace as a reflector and not feel this pressure to create a lot of content. One of my favorite reflector creators is Chelsea Rife. She has a podcast called In My Non-Expert Opinion. And she actually doesn't use Instagram as her main strategy, but repurposes content from her podcast on Instagram and uses it in that way. And I think that's such a beautiful example of being a reflector because reflectors are here to sample different things and then show it all back. So it's like she's sampling, doing the interviews, and then giving us all, hey, here's a little sample of this. Here's a little sample of that. So that's a great way. And really, you should wait for clarity a lot of the times before you focus. While everything's simmering, just talk stuff out with people that you trust. The thing I love about reflectors and content creation is inspiration comes from the most interesting places. And I think as a reflector, it's going to be really helpful for you to keep like a folder or some kind of space digitally or physically of things that bring you inspiration to create content from.
Oh, man. Okay. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us.
Yes.
I feel like I have so much to digest. I can't wait to edit this episode so I can go back and listen to it again. But
that's always the best in the editing is, oh, yeah, I completely forgot about that. You like learn it again, which is so great.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Please share with everyone how they can connect with you and find you.
Yeah. Thank you. The best place to connect with me is probably on my website, which is www.CaitlanSiegenthaler.com. From there, you can find my Instagram, you can find my podcast, you can find all of my offerings around human design and IFS therapy and all of the things. And that's the best place to get it all and choose your own adventure. From there, I have a bunch of free resources there too, which might help you. Yeah.
Yay. And we'll link it in the show notes too, guys. So
perfect.
Thank you. There. But yes, thank you so much. I've loved the conversation so much.
Same. Thank you so much for having me, Kinsey. This was a blast.
How great was Caitlan? Oh my goodness. I have absolutely been nerding out about human design again. Literally, I started getting into it about 3 years ago and then took a break. And lately, I have really been starting to get curious more so about who I am. And I truly think that it's been helping me show up in a more aligned way in my life and business, right? So I hope that you loved the insights that Caitlan shared as much as I did. If you did, go ahead and send me a message on Instagram. I'm at Feel Good Social. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear that you're a human design nerd like me. And let's go ahead and connect over there because I definitely want to hear what your biggest takeaways were from this episode. All right. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and I'll catch you next time I catch you. Thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodsocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodsocial.com for all the goods.